All right, we are now live for a special show with Bill Oberst Jr. How are you today?
Hey, good man. I'm sorry that my head is so giant compared to yours. I set up my frame and then oh yeah, that's better.
Does this make
You,
you feel better?
you know how when you're taking a cell phone picture and like if one person's head is slightly ahead, they look like a huge balloon head.
Okay, or a bobblehead. There we go.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and everybody else is really small. Yeah, the cameras are weird. I'm glad to be with you. Thank you.
So yeah, thanks for joining us.
So the
Pleasure
name of
having
your
me.
show is House of Horrors, right?
Correct. Yep.
That reminds me of the 1940s Universal great what they used to call monster rallies. I don't know if you've ever seen any of them, but they would have like all of the Universal monsters together in one movie: House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula. I think there was actually one called House of Horrors. They were great.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of House of Dracula and them. Probably been a while since I've watched it, but I'm sure they have them on Shutter or AMC or something during Halloween and stuff. I'm sure. So I'll have to check that
What
out.
what kind of horror do you like? What inspired you to do the show?
Oh gosh. Well, actually, I mean, I've always been into horror movies, going to conventions, and in a way, I wish I did this sooner. But hey, it worked out when it was meant to be. But I saw, other people doing interviews, and I had booked Danielle Harris because I've met her, known her for a long time at conventions and stuff. I had booked her on a friend's show, and I was one of the few people that hosted it that time, and I was just like, you know what, I can just do this myself, and and started asking people to come on and making my connections and been going. Let's see, we're on 164 episodes now. So
That's excellent, man.
so
Congratulations.
thank you. Our
People
buddy.
don't people don't understand how hard it is to do well, hell, anything. Certainly a podcast.
That's
And
funny.
when you're when
Patrick
you're
said, "Have Cheetah will view." Who said
okay,
that he
Echo.
pushed me
When
into
you're
it?
doing it your,
Yes,
when
he
you're
held me
doing
at
it
gunpoint.
when you're doing it yourself, there's so many moving parts that people don't appreciate it. So I respect what you do.
And thank you. Yes, it is a lot of work. Some people don't realize, but to do everything that we do and to keep it going, Patrick knows. I mean, you've been on his show too, so he knows how it is. But so, and he said hello again. Oh, did you free? Oh, okay, you're moving. Let's start a little bit. When did you or what kind of movies did you watch growing up, and who inspired you to get into acting?
Old people, people who were born before I was born, because when I grew up, there was no internet. And when I was in my formative years, like, 10, 12, when you really start to like this kind of stuff, there was no VCR. So the only way we had, well, there were two things. You could read about the older horror movies, and we read about them in a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. There was also Fangoria, but they were really, really huge, Stephen. I mean, I don't think that people today can understand what it was like before there was any other media when the new famous monsters would arrive. If you were lucky enough to get it in the mail, great. If you had to go to the drugstore, you just prayed that nobody else had touched it before you. And you
Mm.
just went through it. So Forrest J. Ackerman, the editor of Famous Monsters, he introduced my generation to all the great old horror stars, Lon Chaney Jr., Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Peter Lorre, Basil Rathbone, Peter Cushing, all, and Christopher Lee, all of them that we, with the exception of Christopher Lee, had never seen at the movies because, old movies didn't run that often. In fact, you could order from the back of Famous Monsters 8 millimeter silent film clips from these classics. So I had like a scene from Frankenstein, and you could order a scene from Phantom of the Opera and a scene from Hunchback and Wolfman and stuff like that. So that's what really, really got me into horror was reading about the older stuff. We also had cheap TV movies of the week, and often they were horror themed. Like there was one where Betty Davis played a witch, which was great. I think she was burned at the stake at the end. There's a TV movie called Gargoyles, which
Mhm.
was fantastic. I mean, the costumes were terrible, but it was really, really great and cheesy and fun to watch. And then I'm almost done with my answer, I promise.
Oh, you're fine.
what really put the nail in the coffin in a good way for me was a series called Kolchak the Night Stalker. First, there was the Night Stalker TV movie about a modern day for then, vampire loose in Los Angeles. And it introduced the character of Carl Kolchak, played by Darren McGavin. And then there was a series. And man, I loved that series. I watched every episode and knew them all by heart. So those are the things the horror that I loved as a kid. I mean, of course, I saw Freddy and all of the slashers and all the current stuff from my generation, but my heart really belonged to the old black and white monsters. And I guess the guy who influenced me the most to get into horror was Lon Chaney, who died many years before I was born. But he played the Phantom of the Opera. He played the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and he did his own makeup. And so when I was a kid, I loved to do horror makeups, and I dreamed of doing what I've been able to do for a living.
Did you take any drama classes at all, or acting classes later on?
Yeah, drama class is a great way to get out of doing real work.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I took it. Yeah. I remember the first time I heard applause in a play. I was not a popular child for many reasons. It was different in every way a kid could be different, and some silly school play. But I remember the first time I heard applause. I had a song in the play, and I did the song, and people clapped, and I was like, I want more of this. So I became a little ham. Um, yeah, I didn't learn a damn thing about acting and drama in either high school or college. You cannot learn this business until you start doing it because you got to fall on your ass. And you got to fall on your ass again and again and again. And each time you've got to talk to people who are more experienced and say, how do I not fall on my ass in that particular way again? And if you do this enough, you'll kind of figure it out. But I've done over 200 and I still fall on my ass. But you cannot, when actors say, oh, I'm in class, I'm taking this one and this one and this one, and that's great, but are you on set? Because you're not going to learn how to be on set when you're in class. I'm a big believer in just like getting in there and doing it. Like a friend of mine came over from Germany after World War II, didn't speak, he was a kid, he didn't speak a lick of English. And he learned English from American comic books and from being in a classroom of American kids. He learned it because he had to learn it.
Hmm.
And that's the way I believe you learn this business.
Right. So, and welcome, Echo.
Yeah. Well, there's this wrestler from Canada, he really spoke French. He learned it by watching wrestling. He used by watching wrestling.
There you go. Immersion. I really believe in it. You'll make a lot of mistakes, but you won't really wrap your head around it unless you make those mistakes.
So, and throughout everything that you've done, of who you worked with and everything, who do you think that inspired you, or I mean, gave you like any tips on set? Did anyone help you out that you can recall?
Everybody who was more experienced than me has given me tips. And at first, I thought I knew everything, and I didn't want any damn tips. But I finally learned that these guys and girls who had been in the business this many years, if they were taking the time to tell me something, I better listen. So I did. Even though I wasn't a kid when I started the business, I did theater 14 years before I started film. But I remember Robert Loggia. I played a demon, and he was Apostle Peter in a movie. And I asked Loggia once, he was beginning to enter dementia at this time. Not fully in it, but just the beginnings. He had to use cue cards for his lines. He was a little forgetful, which will happen eventually to all of us. But he was knocking it out of the park, man. I mean, he was getting set applause on every take. He was doing Academy Award performances and he was reading off cue cards. I was like, how is this guy doing this? I know he's done it, for 50 years, but what's his secret? So I went up to Loggia at lunch and I told him, I said, hey, I've been in this dungeon with you and watching you knock it out. what are you doing? How are you doing that? And he said, go get me a ham sandwich. So I got him the ham sandwich and I brought it back. And I thought, okay, now he's going to tell me. He bit into the sandwich and he said, this is ham? I said, I think it is. Yeah. You want something else? No, this is good. So he ate the whole damn sandwich. And I figured, well, he's not going to tell me this. So he gets up to go back into makeup after lunch. And he turns back to me and he says, oh, yeah, the camera is your father confessor. You got to tell it everything. Do that and you'll be all right. And he walks away. That's only one piece of advice I got, but it's turned out to be one of the best. The other was from Jamie Lee Curtis, who took me to the side and said, Bill, screaming is not your strength. You're better when you're quiet. The quieter you are, the better you are. And I took that to heart too. So there's just a couple of them that spring to mind, but I've had lighting people. I had a hell of a time for a long time finding my light, finding my mark on set. You know, I would do these little tricks to pace out, hitting my mark exactly, especially when it's like critical focus, when the guy's pulling focus and, you know, walk up behind you. It's like a Western dolly or something. You got to keep their same distance. And a gaffer told me once, he said, you're having trouble finding your mark. I said, yeah. He said, Bill, find your light and you've found your mark. I'm lighting for you. And I was like, oh. So then I learned that when you hit the little spot where you can, out of the periphery of your eye, you can catch a little twinkle, that means you're in the exact spot they've lit for you because you got your key light and your bounce. And you'll know you're on your mark. So, yeah, things like that.
Okay, that's good to know too. Just out of the corner of your eye. All right. Steve said Ditch Day is one of his favorite films with you and the fantastic Lynn Lowry.
That's great. And, you know, Lynn, sorry to tell a story on everything, but you accumulate these stories. Lynn, the director, Joe Hendrick, came to me. I had killed Lynn in the movie. We'd already shot that. And her screaming and her fingers falling in the fish tank and whatnot. And we also had a little sexy scene where she was folding lingerie and she asked me if I wanted to stay. And it was great. I love Lynn. We had really, really good chemistry. So the director came to me and he said, Bill, I would like you to French kiss Lynn Lowry's corpse. Just kiss her when she's dead. Would you do that? I said, Joe, I got to go ask Lynn. So I went in the makeup chair and Lynn is in the makeup chair and I'm looking at her back and they're doing her eyes, you know, look up. And I said, Lynn, Joe wants me to kiss you while you're dead. Can I? And she wheeled around in the makeup chair and she said, only if it's French. So that was a great scene. I really liked kissing the dead woman. It just added a little something to it. And then she did me the huge favor afterwards, you know, because she's Lynn Lowry. We finished the scene and she said, wow, Bill's a really great kisser. Which is not true, but she did me that favor. So I was like, thank you.
It's like, and I had to play dead. That's funny.
Oh, yeah. I was in bed with Debbie Rochon once in a movie, and we were supposed to be doing the Humpty. And, you know, I didn't want to go. We both got our pants on. It's just under the covers. I didn't want to go too crazy, you know, because you're on this bed and you don't want to like bump. Anyway, so I did my thing and we cut it. And Debbie said in front of the whole crew, they said, how was that for you, Debbie? And she said, I just don't feel like Bill's giving me enough. And so we went back for another take. And I humped that thing from here until Christmas. And afterwards, Debbie said, yeah, that's better.
That was fun. Um, so what's another film that you might, as us as fans, that you may think is underrated and may have not seen? What are you most proud of?
Oh my God, there's so many of them, because these movies, in the age of streaming now, movies get made and then they kind of fall into the abyss. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like you have a fan base for everybody that's in it, and they watch it, but it's really, really hard to get traction. I've done a couple movies with Mark Savage, an Australian cult director who's been in LA for years, but he made his name as a cult director in Australia. And I love working with him. I did Painkiller with him, and I did Stress to Kill. Both of those are really good movies. They never get their due. Deadly
Stress to
Revisions.
Kill is good. I watched that. It's on
Oh,
Tubi.
yeah.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, check it
Uh,
out.
Deadly Revisions with Gregory Blair. There's a werewolf short I did, which is called The Beast. It's a short film, but a lot of times short films just nail it. I think that's a really good one. Assassins that I did with Mike Bonomo, just so many of them, over 200 projects. I would say that at least half of those, I would say, these are really, really good movies. People should check them out.
Hmm. Yep.
But you
Uh,
have to be in an exploring mood. I was lucky enough to grow up when everybody went to the movies. It's the only way you saw movies. So, you could go to the drive-in or you could go to a Saturday matinee and say, well, I'm just going to drop 250 on this movie. I've never heard of anybody that's in it. I don't know anything about it, but the poster looks cool. And it wasn't a big investment, you know what I mean? You could just like try things out.
right.
So I really mourn the loss of that. And there's something about sitting in the dark with a bunch of strangers. I know people don't like it because everybody's, we got our own things now. We want to do our phones. But sitting with a group of strangers in the dark and having to be quiet while you experience this thing together, it's pretty cool. So if people stream movies, I would say invite over a bunch of strangers and turn out the lights. You'll have more fun.
Yeah. Stress to Kill was a good one. Like all the stuff that was stressing your character out. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, people at the movie theater, they remind me of that. Yep. The people on the phone, it was like so real life situations in that movie. So,
Yeah.
when you read a script like that or any sort of character, what's your process into getting in that character?
Well, um, generally, if somebody contacts me and says, hey, I have this script I want you to read, I already know them or I know someone who knows them. So first, it's about personality, the person who wrote it and the director. I know that sounds weird that it's not first about the script, but when you make a movie, it's like it's like summer camp. You create this family that's really, really close to you, and you live and sleep and eat and piss and bitch and everything together. You're never going to see them again after the 3 weeks are over. But while you do it, you're really, really close. So you only want to work with people that you think you can do that with. So first, if the director likes me and wants me to be in it and I kind of get on with them, then I look at the lines and see if there's a lot of lines. And if there is, I don't want to do it. Because the characters that I get hired for, they're best when they're taciturn. They're best when they don't say much. If I got to do 3 paragraphs, I'm losing my creepiness, like I am right now. When you go on and on. So, and even if I have like 4 sentences when I get on set, I know I'm going to go to the director and say, do you think we might be able to cut one of these and, just keep going to see how few words we can say? I'm influenced by the old silent films where they said nothing. Then that's how you decide, okay, yeah, I want to do this. Then you got to learn the script. For that, I do what's called breaking down the script. For every single scene, I either handwrite it out or type it out myself so that my fingers have touched that whole scene. And then I can start to learn it. And the only way you can really learn lines is singing them. If you can't sing it, you don't know it.
That's interesting. I never thought of trying or singing it out. So I don't sing, but I could like in my head maybe sing it out. But yeah, that's a
You
good.
don't have to be able to sing. Just but and the trick, nobody I've ever met wants to do this. It's hard as hell, but it works. The trick is to pick some weird ass tune so that the syllable breaks are going to come at odd points. Like, for instance, to be or not to be, that is the question. I use the old German national anthem just because it's a weird tune and it always breaks up the syllables. What you're trying to do is learn it syllable by syllable so that you don't ever say, I know this sentence because I know how to say it. You got to know the syllables. So it would be like, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune. You see how the syllables are, they're breaking up weird. So if you can't sing your poem or whatever it is you're trying to learn, your lines, if you can't sing it to some weird tune like that, you think you know it, but you're going to get caught with your pants down.
Cheetah Worldview wants to know: do you find movies are being rushed in terms of filming? Instead of 20 days, you now may only get 7 days.
Yeah, who asked that?
Have Cheetah Worldview, our buddy Patrick.
Tito, my Tito, you're so right. You couldn't be more right, baby. Yes, it's gone from 3 weeks to 2 weeks to now they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to knock it out in like, 10 days. I'm like, dude, you can make something in 10 days, but I doubt if you can make a feature-length movie that's worth a shit. Yes, it's all crunched in because what we have lost and what we're losing, I don't think we'll ever get it back, is the art of composition and framing. Film is a visual medium, and it matters what is in the frame and in what position those things are in and how you light it. It's not just, I keep hearing people say, well, making movies is just like, I do that all the time. I film my family. Like, no, you created an entire world, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of thought. Yeah, people think they're making movies because they're just filming real life, but movies were never meant to be real life. They're supposed to be like a whole world that you can enter in. And don't get me started on sound, Tito. You probably heard some really bad sound in movies, and it's because they don't take the time to mic everyone properly and to hire a professional sound mixer and then go back and do ADR, automated dialogue replacement, for the parts that you didn't get right. So you end up in a scene with, like, Stephen, you and I are talking like at the breakfast table, right? So your side is great, it's clean. But on my side, because we filmed it a few minutes later, there's a truck going by. And the truck's not in yours. But they never came back to me and said, hey, we need to redo these lines because that costs money.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm. It is annoying.
If you don't have but 10 days, make a 20-minute movie. You can make a great 20-minute movie in 10 days, but not a feature.
Right. Speaking of sort of like shorts, you've done some shorts and anthologies such as Welcome to Hell. What was the other Wild Eye one? Well, no, it wasn't a short, but you did Hell's Kitty also. I'm a big Wild Eye fan. I got like over 400 Wild Eye movies. So
I did. I love Wild Eye. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Wild Eye did Coyote, which is a great.
And Coyote is a good one. Yes.
Yeah, art house movie I did. What was I going to say? You inspired me to say something. What were you talking about?
Shorts and anthologies. Wild Eye.
Yeah, Zombie World.
Oh, okay.
I did the wraparound for Zombie World, which is a collection of zombie shorts from all over the world. Mm-hmm. So I did that for Jesse Baget. Mm-hmm. And I was a news anchor who's reporting on the zombie outbreak.
Yeah.
And then each time you come back, like, I've completely deteriorated more and more. But what I loved about it was the guy keeps his news anchor hair, and he's trying to keep his news anchor demeanor even while he's that was a lot of fun. I did a talking dog movie with Jesse called The Three Dogateers. with Dean Cain. Jesse went to the distributor and he said, "What do you need in your catalog?" And the distributor said, "If you can get me a talking dog movie with Dean Cain and a name horror actor as a villain, and you can deliver it to me by August, I'll buy it." So he did. He used his parents' dogs. They were not picture dogs, but they did great. He had a buddy animate the mouths. He got Dean in and shot him out in one long, like 18-hour day. I came in and worked for a couple of weeks, and we made the movie. Yeah, it was great.
I'll have to check that one out. I haven't seen that one, but yeah. So Dean Cain, of course, was in Lois and Clark Adventures of Superman, and what was the movie he did with Jen and Sylvia Soska? I can't think of it. Where he was in jail, they killed his wife. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Dean does a lot of dog movies. People like him at dogs, and they like him at Christmas.
Yeah,
my,
that's true.
my mom passed away in December, and she was suffering from dementia. And before she did, it was Hallmark season, and so they had all the movies running, and she wasn't really aware of what she was watching. She no longer knew how to change the channel. She just thought she had to watch what was on. So I came in one day, and it was the Hallmark channel running, and I said, "Mom, what are you watching?" And she said, "It's the same guy, and he keeps kissing different women." And it was Dean Cain. They were running like back to back Dean Cain Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's got their specialty in this business, right?
Yep. Criminal Minds. Were you a fan of that at all before being cast as an unsub?
No, I never watched it or never cared about it.
Oh,
But Matthew Gray Gubler won my heart because he is a horror fan, a real horror fan. And Breen Fraser, who co-created the show, he's a horror fan too. Then when I got on set, my makeup artist turned out to be Christopher Allen Nelson. And Christopher Allen Nelson is also an actor. He's done the makeup for all of the Kill Bill movies, all the Tarantino movies. He was the groom in the original Kill Bill. And at that time, he was doing American Horror Story, and they brought him in to do my character.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
of course, he's a huge horror fan. So that was a really, really great experience.
That was definitely a lot of horror actors on that show. Tobin Bell was in it, and Andrea Barbeau, and you, of course.
Adrian Barbeau and me and Tobin Bell. And so Matthew Gray Gubler, who played Dr. Reed in the show and directed this episode, when they hired me, he said, when I was there for costume fitting, he said, "I've tried to hire you 3 times." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, it was that thing in the room where somebody says never heard of him." Like, everybody can say, yeah, he's good, this is good. Yeah, good casting. But if one person says, never heard of him, you're dead. And I never reached the level where everybody in the room was going to say, "Oh, yeah, of course I heard of him." I said, "Well, how'd you get me on this time?" He said, "Well, I had Adrian and I had Tobin, and everybody had heard of them, and they said, okay, you can have your no name." So that's how I got on Criminal Minds and ended up doing one of my favorite characters because he had soul. I love to play like wounded monsters. In fact, I was cleaning up stuff today and I came across the script, and Breen Fraser, the producer, signed it and said, "Bill, thank you for giving us the most heartbreaking Criminal Minds unsub ever." And I thought, that's really, really nice. Like the combination of a person who does really bad things, but they're also kind of heartbreaking at the same time. I like that combination.
I have to say that was one of my favorite episodes. I'm going back and watching it. I didn't realize you were the unsub in that episode, but as soon as it showed Tobin Bell, I'm like, oh, I remember this episode, and then it came back to me. So I really enjoyed watching that one. For people who want to see that, it's season 9. It's titled Blood Relations. So.
Yeah, they changed my look on that. I had a brow piece that went over. I had they're called plumpers. My teeth out like this. And then Christopher wanted to do something weird, like, because sometimes I was a product of incest, and a lot of times there's weird, like, abnormalities. And he said, "I've got an idea." So the next day he came in and he had an ear. and it was one of the character Pepper's ears from American Horror Story.
Oh,
And
okay.
he said you can never say where this ear comes from until the series is ended. Well, now both of them have ended, so it's okay. But that was so nice of him to do that, and he painstakingly put on this big ear, which is so realistic that when it aired, I had people calling me saying, "Oh my God, what happened to your ear?" He was a great artist, but yeah, that was a part of making the character kind of sympathetic at the same time.
Mhm. Are you into true crime at all, or just horror?
No, I don't get much into true crime. The world is such a dark place. People are so damn mean. I don't
Mm,
mean all people, but I don't think I don't think that being online is a good representation of what the world is really like. And so I don't like to spend my time reading or thinking about, people who do horrible things because it just desensitizes me and I forget how horrible the things are. If it's like, next, he killed his mother and rolled her up in a rug, then went out for a salami sandwich. I'm like, one of those is okay, but if you're binging back to back, you kind of forget how truly horrible these things are. So for that reason, no.
mhm. Um, all right, let's go into Circus of the Dead a little bit. Papa Corn, how was it?
Speaking of doing horrible things,
Oh, yeah. Speaking of doing horrible, horrible things,
oh my God.
yeah. The first time I saw that, I'm like, what the hell am I watching? But I mean, I'm twisted. I like horror movies, but still, it's like this is wow, really psychotic. I guess I know you can't go too much into the sequel, but will we learn any history of Papa Corn? Why he is the way he
I,
is?
I doubt. I do know some things about it, but I doubt that Billy Pond will reveal like why he is the way he is because
Mhm.
he doesn't like that. And same with me. Like I just like things to come out of the blue and they're weird and they shock you. Um, but you will see the clowns in another light. The the thing that Billy did to help me understand this character, I was so clueless, Stephen. I thought like, oh, he's a scary clown. And no, he's not a scary clown. He's a scary man. And he's a
Mhm.
scary man because he is a man. What Billy Pond told me when I got on set was he said, look, Papa represents what every man would be if there were no restraints. And I was like, my God, is that true? I know it is true. I don't want it to be true. But Papa is man, humankind, I suppose, with absolutely no guardrails. Because humans love to be cruel to one another for some reason. We're very broken. We have a lot of rottenness inside us, but we enjoy being cruel to one another. And Papa is that with just no guardrails. And Billy said, and his day job, he's a necrophiliac, homicidal, rapist, uh, and he happens to work as a circus clown. But he could just as easily work as a plumber. And I
Mhm.
was like, I was so wrong about this character. So that's what I tried to do was play him so that if you took away the clown makeup, he would still be really, really scary.
Was there anything that when you read it, you were like, nah, this is too far. I'm not going to do it, or just
Yes,
with it?
there was one scene I did not participate in. That was a scene involving the baby.
Mm.
And I didn't do that because there were certain things I wouldn't do on screen while my mom was still alive. She never saw Circus of the Dead, but still, I just couldn't do it. I
Mm.
just couldn't do it. That was rough. Although I had no problem masturbating to someone's tongue being cut out and, slitting Chanel Ryan's throat and later copulating with her decapitated head. So, yeah, who am I to say that I'm
But when
so
it comes
right?
to babies, that's too much.
But yeah, I have my lines, although they're now that I think about it, they don't make much sense. But
Mm.
Yeah, those clowns were just flat out mean.
Mean, insane. Yeah. Let's see. Got a couple questions here. Are you still doing your one man touring show?
I am. I've done several of them in the past. I did Ray Bradbury's Pillar of Fire for years. Love doing that show. My new one is called Adversary, and it's about Satan. It's kind of like a Satan clip show, Satan's Greatest Lies. And I play him and go in and out of character, and I've taken three fictional pieces that kind of illustrate different ways the devil might come at you. And so I've started touring that around. I love doing solo shows. I played Mark Twain solo for years. I played JFK on stage, a character named Louis Grizzard, a Southern writer. I've done thousands of solo shows. It's good preparation for being on set because you learn that anything that can go wrong is going to go wrong, and you got to just roll with it. Don't stop until they say go.
Mm-hmm. Sort of going with that, we sort of had a conversation about memorizing lines and everything. Is there a time where you forgot your line and just, I mean, even if you didn't change it too much, but any improv that stayed in the feature or show?
No, I hate improv. And when I flub my lines, usually I just do what I'm doing now. And they can tell Bill flubbed his lines. The best thing for an actor like me who hates ad lib to do is if I flub my lines while they're still rolling, because you don't want them to have to cut and then slate it and start again. While they're still rolling, I'll just say, I'm sorry, can I go again? And they'll say, go in again, still rolling. Boom, then you're on to another take. For me, that's better than trying to come up with something to save it and blowing it and making it even worse. Oh, I hate to forget my lines. And you know it'll happen. It's like if you put your car keys in the same place every day, Stephen, like so you'll never lose them. There'll come that one day where inexplicably they're not there.
They're in another spot, it's like.
And you're like, how could this have happened? This never happens. But, you know, inexplicably, invariably, humans will foul up. Yeah, I hate it, though. Hate it.
Mm-hmm. Stephen wants to know, what was it like working with Tiffany and Chanel?
I stepped on Chanel's foot with my big clown shoes. She said, ow! I don't blame her. I'm sure that it really hurt. And she was limping the rest of the day. I hope she forgave me. I think so. But it was in the scene when I was screaming in her face, I went bam. So Chanel, if you're watching, I love you and you're wonderful and you're beautiful. And I hope you've forgiven me. Tiffany was great. We had already worked together before, and we were hiking buddies, hiking in Griffith Park. So I loved working with Tiffany, but I really, really hated putting that gun in her mouth. I did not like that. But I love the little like seduction scene where she's leaning over the counter, smacking her gum and popcorn, saying, yes, Rose, that's a nice name. Tiffany and I decided that like, had he not had to kill her, they might have went out on a date and kind of gotten along because they had a nice little thing going. But the card happened to turn up a rose. If it hadn't,
which was bad luck for her. That's true.
Yeah, Papa might have asked her out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good scene. Wow. Let's see.
It's hard to be mean to women in general, and especially when you know them. Mm-hmm. It's really hard because it's hard on them. When you're doing a violence scene, the woman's getting thrown around and this and that, and if she's got hair, her hair's going. Well, they don't like that. They want their face featured. They work hard to look pretty, and they want it featured in the movie. So I've learned to try to take care of women I'm working with. If I got to do something around their face, hold their hair back. Make sure you find out what their best side is and hold it up to the camera as you're doing your licking their face or whatever you have to do. But I'm always worried that they're going to watch this scene and go, ooh, you got spit on me, or I look terrible. I try to take care of them because nobody gives a damn what I look like, but they do care what they look like.
Right. Steven said that he still rocks his shirt that you and Tiffany signed when he met you at the Cult Classic.
Oh, Cult Classic was a great convention. Oh, you know what? I don't know if you know about a movie called Butcher's Bluff. I haven't seen it, but I first saw it at. I first met the director, and they had someone dressed as the character. They hadn't shot it yet at Cult Classic. Have you heard of Butcher's Bluff?
I think was that something that's coming out. I thought it was coming out. I didn't think it was out
It
yet.
is coming out.
Okay.
It's we've shot it. I was in. It was shot in Texas, but that's the first time that I saw that the director was very smart. He had this suit made for the character and was there promoting the film, which had yet to be made at the convention. Cult Classic was a great convention. Somebody from Friday the 13th Part Something was selling their jeans. They had a pair of jeans they wore in Friday the 13th Part Something.
Okay.
And the jeans were like tacked up with thumbtacks on the wall behind them. And I don't know, like $700. And somebody bought the jeans.
Hey, Barry Bostwick sold some underwear that he wore in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like,
And why not? Why not?
so, hey, if whatever. Sort of speaking of conventions, do you have any convention plans later this year?
No, I don't. I backed off on doing the conventions. Oh wait, well I'm doing unless I can do a presentation. I really enjoy those
Mhm.
where I can like teach something or talk about something. I'm doing a convention called the Imaginarium Convention, which is for creators of all genres, and I'm doing a workshop there.
Mhm.
And that's in, I think it's in Tennessee. I know it's in the summertime, but people can look it up. Imaginarium. That's the con that I'm doing this year. But I don't like sitting behind a table. I feel weird asking people for money for pictures. It just doesn't feel right. I would rather be in front of the table, like hugging people. Then they don't want you there because you're not making any money. So my deal is if I can do a performance or I can do a workshop or something like that to earn my keep, then I can just, hang out with the fans and not have to do the table thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, Matthew Lillard at conventions, like he's always like going through the line too and stuff. I mean, yeah, he sits and signs, but I mean, he's also very friendly with the fans and always hugging everybody and going through the lines like, yeah, I'll get to you, and I mean, like talks to everybody. I really appreciate people like that. I mean, that's what we're there for. Have a good time, and yeah, we're also a fan of your work, but it's cool just to interact with people, and talk and have
Yeah, and
time and
your fellow horror fans. Most people
yeah.
who are in these movies we're also fans of horror.
Hmm.
And so it's great to interact with people, like, to meet somebody who's all tatted up and to say, oh my God, what you got to tell me the story behind each one of those and to hear the story behind their tats and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
you even learned about people's relationships. Like at one con, they're dating, the next one, they're married.
People get
Um,
married at the cons, even I've
I
seen, or
know.
engaged, or engaged, or whatever. Or yeah,
Yeah, it's and then you get to ride back and forth with the people. Like Berriman and I rode back and forth. The Cult Classic. And it was great talking to him. You know what? You're making me want to do more cons. No, I will not sit at the table.
yes. Well, you don't. Well, hey, you don't even have to have a table. You can just stand there. Hey, just walk around, and then when you're done,
I
just walk.
I did a weekend of hell in Germany, and I spent so much time in front of the table talking to people and hugging and all that when it came time to cash out. They have somebody with you there to mark what you sold and all. You have a guarantee.
Hmm.
And my guarantee was far more than what I'd actually sold. So they paid me my guarantee, but they never asked me back again.
Yeah, I've PA'd for people before, so I know how it is. So yeah. But, let's see what else I was gonna say. I know that's why you came on earlier today. You said that tomorrow, if people don't know, you're also a minister or do ministry. Um, correct?
Yes, I'm an Episcopalian lay minister.
Hmm. And out of curiosity, I know, I mean, it doesn't matter to me and it shouldn't matter to people because, God says we shouldn't judge. But has there been people that have criticized what you do, even though you're still a preach or whatever?
Yes, there have been, but fewer in the church
Hmm.
than people outside of the church who are my horror friends who say, how can you believe that shit? More from outside the church, very few from inside.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of weird because you don't want to you don't want to proselytize to people. You want everybody to have their own faith.
Right.
But if they're saying, how can you believe this shit? It really is an invitation for you to tell them how you can believe this shit.
Right.
So that's always a fine line for me to walk. I find that most people are very interested in Jesus, but not at all interested in churches. And I think that's probably pretty okay with them. It's pretty okay with me.
Hmm.
So when I want to have a conversation with someone on that subject, we can just start talking about Jesus and it's okay. Not the mean ass crazy Christians or, the church that did this or the church that did that, but the man himself. And that's the common ground usually.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've had a lot of 3 a.m. overnight shoot talks about Jesus mixed in with space aliens and the robot apocalypse and everything else, 3 in the morning. But that's it's probably what I'm most interested in outside of my work and above everything else. I'm really, really into Jesus. I think that the way that he lived was the way to live. It's a radically different way to be human, and I'm very into it.
Hmm. All right. Good answer. I like that. That's interesting. So I'm glad we could bring that into the conversation as well, because I just found that interesting. Like I said, like, yeah, what do people think about that? I mean, that's interesting. Stress stick. Let's see. Oh, my mom was saying that she was glad that I brought that up. So, yep. All right.
Your mom's in the chat room.
Yes, she is.
What a cool mom you have.
Yep. She always. Well, whenever the phone's working, she'll stop by the show and watch. So, yep.
What's her name?
Peggy. She's right there. So.
Hey, Peggy.
Yeah, she
Thank
said
you.
hi to you earlier. I don't know if it was up long enough while you were talking, but yep.
Thank you, Peggy.
So yeah, she's
No,
also
no, I can't. I don't have my contacts in. I can't see a damn thing. I see
that's all right. I should have read it to you.
I see
um,
fuzzy shapes. In fact, when I hate wearing my contact.
uh,
So usually my script for on set is blown up to like a 28-point type. Each word is about this big. No, because that way I don't have to put those things in.
mhm. She's also a criminal mind. Sorry, say criminal fans. Yeah, it's Criminal Minds fan. So she loved doing that. So
And Peggy, they were talking about bringing back my character in the last season, and they didn't. And I'm so disappointed because I really want to know, one, what's he going to do with that car he stole? Because he can't know how to drive.
he's
He's
a
been
West
living out,
Virginian
he's
mute
been living
or
out in the cabin. And
hillbilly half breed.
two, where's he? If he's heading to the city, he's going to need a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
First thing, he's going to need a shirt. And he doesn't have any money or a driver's license. I just really wondered what happened to him. I think he should have stayed in the woods.
So, and the episode also, that episode ironically took place in Wheeling, West Virginia, not far from where my mom is too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. On Criminal Minds chat boards afterwards, there were a lot of West Virginia people who were like, "We're not like that." But of course, if you want to telegraph it, you do I'm from South Carolina. Same thing. If you want to telegraph, backwardness, you say South Carolina.
Yep. I guess last movie I'll bring up is Stress to Kill. So, how did you get involved with that? Was through an agent or manager, or it was just sent to you?
Mostly what I get is through people who know me, or I know them, or they know somebody who knows me. I met Mark Savage at a bookstore in Burbank, Dark Delicacies, I think, at like a mixer. My manager introduced me, and I immediately knew I wanted to work with him. And he said, "I want you to be my Lon Chaney." And I said, "I want you to be my Todd Browning." And then then he came to me we started having lunch together, and then he came to me with this movie, Stress to Kill. And I loved working with Mark. He would have played the role much better than I did. But he showed me how to do it, and I could tell when he was excited. You want your director, you want to find out, like, what's the sound that your director makes, and it's different for everybody. When they're really pleased with something, like a lot of times cameramen, if they like what you're doing, are camera women. they'll breathe really quiet and they'll say, "Holy shit," once the take's over, and you'll go like, "Ooh, that was good then." So Mark had this little like the way he would say "cut" is how I knew whether he liked the take or not. And he would say, "And cut." If you did it like that, he liked it. So I tried to learn how to please him so that he would say, "And cut," just like that. Michael Landon Jr., who I did a Hallmark movie with, 2 Hallmark movies, if he likes it, he's the opposite. Really, really quiet. If he likes it, he says, "And that's our cut." And you're like, "Oh, he liked it. Okay." But if he just says "cut," he didn't like it. It's really weird how your relationship with your director is so, so very important. They're like a father figure to you during the shoot.
Mhm. For that movie, a little spoiler alert, but you murdered people with blow darts. Were you disappointed there weren't more kills than just blow darts, or?
Yeah, both Mark and I wanted more, but you got to set up the kills to make them mean something. So we did as many as we could.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I fell out of the truck on my head for that shoot. It looked pretty good too, I thought, when he had a heart attack. Those are the little things that people just go, "Oh yeah, dude had a heart attack." They're like, "Do you have any idea how hard it is to fall out of the truck onto your head and not kill yourself and make it look real?"
Mm.
So yeah, it
Mhm.
was. I always wish that there were more people killed. Doesn't that sound horrible to say?
A little
But
bit,
you
yeah,
know what I mean. You know what I mean.
yeah. Um, why do you think we like to be scared?
Because
That's a
it's a
question from Cheetah.
rehearsal. It's a rehearsal for death, and we don't think enough about death. We don't deal with it enough. We don't comprehend it enough. We don't welcome it enough because it's going to happen to all of us. We don't live our lives as if it's going to happen. And scared is just a little heart stop. It's just a little like, "Oh," and there's something in us that says, "Oh, that's good," because now I'm not so scared of the big one that comes. It's why we ride roller coasters. It's why we come up behind people and go, "Hey!" to scare them. I'm convinced that that's the whole appeal of horror is that death is coming. We don't want to deal with it, and it's like a sideways way. But I also think, Stephen, that this is why horror fans are some of the most gentle people you'll ever meet
Mhm.
because we've already dealt with all the shit about death and dying. We've rehearsed it. We've done it in movies. We've died in movies. We've killed people in movies. We've watched movies where it happens. So when the real thing comes, we're able to look it in the face.
Mhm.
And I think that's what makes horror people so gentle. The most uptight and cruel people in the world, the meanest ass people, are the ones who have never dealt with death.
Mhm. Surprisingly, people might think like horror conventions are weird, but like the best people get along with other fans like more than anyone, and like we'll even do stuff for each other when we need help, and it's like
Sure.
you'd be surprised how yeah, we like horror and it might be weird, but probably
And
the
that's
most
why.
generous people.
I think that's why there are deaths in the horror family, you know?
Mhm.
I have a podcast called Gothic Goodnight, which is short little pieces of fiction to put you to sleep. And we had a woman who used to call in frequently. I had people can call in and leave messages, and I put them on the show. And she used to call. And so I called her. I hadn't heard from her in months to see how she was. And it was her daughter. And she said she passed away. And so in the next episode, I had to mention something about the people that have listened who are no longer there. Yeah, it's like a family.
Mhm.
It's like a family and a gentle family. I find I've never met, no matter how scary we may look, I've never met a scary looking person in the horror world who actually was scary.
Mhm. And also, people who play villains, it seems in real life, are like the nicest people.
And I think that's why, because we get all of that out. When I sit in the makeup chair, the makeup artist usually will say, "I can tell you're a sweetheart." And I'll say, "How can you tell?" And they'll say, "Look at you." What they mean is people who look like this are going to be sweet. But people who are beautiful, or even worse, drop dead gorgeous, they're probably going to ream me out a new one and give the makeup artist hell.
Hmm.
That's what they mean.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. You know what? Like anybody else, I would love to be beautiful. I would love to be beautiful. I spent years not liking my body and not liking my face and just wishing anything that I could be a beautiful person. And I have really come to be so glad that I'm not and that I look like this and that I have this face and this body because it's allowed me to experience parts of the world that I don't think I ever would have if I was pretty.
A little off topic here, but we were talking about death, and it kind of made me think of have you ever seen any ghosts or had any spiritual encounters that you can think of?
Spiritual encounters, yes, but not ghosts. I've never seen ghosts or in fact, I was the first person that I've ever been with. Well, I was with my grandmother in the room, but I wasn't touching her. But the first person I've ever actually been with who died was my mother in December, just before Christmas. And we were taking shifts with her. And she'd had a stroke, and they knew she wasn't going to make it. She was unconscious, but she was still alive. And it was my shift. And it was 1:30 in the morning, and I was holding her. And I had my hand on her heart, and her breathing just changed all of a sudden from, I don't know if you've ever heard the death rattle, but it's, very, very laborious.
Mm.
And it just shifted on a dime to, and I thought, maybe this is it. So I put my hand on her heart so I could feel the heartbeats, and I leaned in close to her. And I said, I love you, Mama. Thank you, Mama. It's okay, Mama. Thank you, Mama. I love you, Mama. It's okay, Mama. Until about 10 minutes, I felt the last heartbeat. And I knew it was the last heartbeat. And then I cannot describe to you, Stephen, what I'm trying to say, but something was not there. Even if I hadn't felt the heartbeat, no more. I would have known that something was not there. Something was not in the room.
Hmm.
And it was, I don't know if all death is like this, but it just reconfirmed to me that there's a part of us that is not our physical bodies because that part was no longer there in what I was holding. Yeah, so those are the type of spiritual encounters that I've had, but I've never seen a scary ghost or anything like that. They probably take one look at me and go, "I'm not going to mess with him."
Right. Um, Cheetah said, "Hell, you have a beautiful spirit, Bill. Looks fade, but kind spirit is ageless," which is true.
This is true. Looks do fade, and thank you for saying that because I've worked with people whose looks are fading, and they work so hard to keep it up, and after a while, you just can't hide it. You can have all the work done on your face, but your hands will always show it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a sad thing to be around someone who really, really, really wants to be young and they're not, and they haven't surrendered to that. So thank you for that. Yeah, beautiful spirits do go on forever.
Hmm. Let's see. We're almost coming up to an hour. So my last question is, what is something fans may not know about you, whether an interest or talent or something that you can share?
Define your question more.
I mean, hobbies or a talent or just something we don't know about you. I don't know, just something you would like to share.
I don't know if there's anything people don't. I've been so upfront about everything.
Hmm.
I love stuffed animals, particularly puppets, and I love to make them talk. I can
You
amuse
should bring one
myself.
out. Hello.
Yeah, like, I can
Yep.
amuse myself with a little animal puppet
Yeah.
and making it talk. And it can say things that nobody else can because it's a puppet. It can
Mhm.
say, "What the hell are you doing? Oh my God, where am I?" Stuff like that. And I can
Oh,
just crack myself up with that for hours on end. It's
you
probably
need a
it's
squishmallow. That's
not
what you.
very interesting, but yeah, that's one of the things I don't believe I've ever talked about, and with good reason.
Hey, no problem. Exclusive here, everybody, on the House of Horrors. Bill likes puppets. uh, well, thank you, Bill. I
Now
mean,
somebody's going to put that in a movie where I have to have an animal puppet talk to somebody. I did a thing with Bill Moseley where we were evil. I was the evil ventriloquist, and we were both in the Masons and something supernatural called Handy Dandy. But the ventriloquist dummies came to life. But I thought that when the ventriloquist dummies came to life, they should be like kind of gentle and funny and not evil, because then it's scarier.
yeah,
It's scarier if a puppet is smiling and all and then kills you.
yes.
Yeah,
Well, maybe you'll do a puppet movie soon.
yeah, maybe.
So, Steven said that he's sure they'll make a Popcorn Funko Pop. And then Cheetah said, great interview tonight. So, thank you, Steven, and everybody who came in,
Thank
and
you.
you, of course.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for what you do for the family of horror. I appreciate you.
All right. I appreciate the appreciation.
Thank you,
All
man.
right. So, yeah, next week we got Mike Ferguson will be coming on. And then I believe it's the following week, Chanel Ryan is actually going to be joining us. So I'll let her know that that
Tell her I'm
hopefully
sorry.
I should be like, "How's your foot?" And she'll be like, "What?" Well, Bill was saying that he stepped on it.
Those big clown shoes stepped on me.
Uh, and my mom said, "Thank you for coming as well."
Thank you, Peggy.
All right.
I'll talk to you folks. Thank you. God bless you. Bye.
All right. Have a great night.
Bye.